Our next speaker is Ross Mirkarimi with the San Francisco Board of Supervisors.
It's an honor and privilege to be here before you. I wanted to sort of answer this question the best way that I know, and that is when I came into an elected office in 2005, I was astounded that the discussion of reentry was not as mainstream as I thought it needed to be. And yet people were extremely frustrated and agitating over the high crime rates, the violence, and yet nowhere in the, I think, forefront was there ever, I think, the kind of discussion afforded to the question of reentry. So in terms of what I've done as a member of the legislative branch of our government and what we're doing was that I went to Jeff Adachi, our public defender, to say, it's time we start a reentry council, and it's time that we gather the talent, the skills, and the experience that's congregated in this room so that we can begin to focus the political will and the determination to finally shed new light on old questions. And that hadn't been happening to the degree that it needed. And by the fact that us within the legislative branch of government, in concert with the public defender, also trying to talk and I think communicating with the mayor's office and the district attorney, who's also leading up our reentry efforts, finally put, I think, the obligation, as I spoke to earlier in my opening remarks, on the city government to recognize what I think has been long neglected. That's not to dismiss the incredible work that many of you have been doing through the CBO network, but I feel it's been getting very insufficient support from the city government, and I don't mean just fiscally, I mean politically speaking. And at very minimum, when I say about insufficient support, I mean at the very minimum using the pulpit. I mean speaking to the question that I think that when we look at the big slice as to why violent crime continues and why that there's that interconnection of those who used to serve or had served in the system and are recidivating again, then why weren't we lasering in on that one slice as to what our city government can do better to impress and compel our state and federal representatives and those who work with us in order to help bolster our ability to answer these questions. So that is why we formed the Reentry Council. It was about politics. It was about the ability to exert some local muscle so that we could go to Sacramento, which we had several times, in order to compete for grants which the city and county had not done before. And the first time, and let me tell you, we were high-fiving each other when we received $500,000 grant in order to give us that empowerment so that we can then disseminate the money back to you all, because this is what is a tried and true strategy. What I've noticed in what I think our role on the Board of Supervisors, with the assistance of my colleague Supervisor Maxwell and others, is that especially when it comes down to budget time, that it's not a footnote of discussion anymore about what we should be doing in order to support the fine work you all are doing and the innovation that's coming before us that we should, I think, invest in. It's now becoming part of the primary discussion that should be incorporated in the mayor's budget. Because when the mayor's budget, who gets the first whack at advancing it to the Board of Supervisors, is inclusive or not of the kind of programs that we would like to see, then it's up to us in the Board of Supervisors then to help modify and add back. In the last 2 years, and I have to say this with a certain distinction of pride, in the last 2 years, we've invested more for add-back programs towards the question and towards the implementation of reentry than has ever been done in the history or recent history in the city and county of San Francisco. This is why back on track is moving so well. This is why that our great sheriff here through the NOVA program and then our great public defender is able to aim with great precision and efficacy because we're trying to put the money into those programs. And yet, it's still not enough. Because ultimately speaking, while in my opinion that there's this kind of decentralized effort, I'm really into centralization. I really am. And as I had mentioned earlier, it's astounding and I think shameful that for all the money that the city government has been investing, on top of which the state and federal grants we get to try to put our people to work, to try to put those who are formerly incarcerated to work, getting the job skills training, getting immigrants the opportunities, getting the people who just are not able to, I think, demonstrate the wherewithal or the inspiration or whatever holds them back to get them the kind of job so that they can have a livelihood in San Francisco, then I also feel that the centralization of workforce speaks to, I think, the question of centralization of reentry programs. If I had a dream, quite frankly, I would like this discussion to evolve to the point, and I mentioned this last year, and I believe we're on this assembly line of thinking, that one day in San Francisco, we should create a Department of Reentry. And that, by creating a Department of Reentry, then continues to house everybody on one roof in a fishbowl, but making that fishbowl transparent so that you know where the dollars are going, you know exactly how we are aiming our resources as we should, and marshaling the kind of support so it doesn't seem so elusive to all of you as to why we're not doing better. Thank you.